Hi, everybody. It's Mama Deb with Mama Deb Gets Real about mental health. Tonight, we are going to be discussing a doozy of a topic. We're going to be talking about toxic masculinity. So, I'm going to give a few minutes for people to join us, and I'm going to read off a little bit of some statistics that happened in the U.S. that led to this overpowering thought that men were definitely the stronger of the sex. Definitely, they could not have any emotions. They had to do this, they had to do that. And that's something we're moving away from, thank heavens, as the generations pass. So the greatest generation, you guys all know who I'm talking about. We're talking about those soldiers, those wives that stayed at home or worked in the metal plants to support the soldiers. That was the beginning of toxic masculinity. MacArthur has been historically known for slapping a battle fatigued soldier and telling him, get your shit together. I don't know if he said shit, but get your shit together and fight this war and be a man. That is exactly what was something of that phrase was said to that man. So that's where this whole thing started. And it was taught in the home that the man is the one who has to go to work, has to do all of this, has to, make sure that the family has everything, but does not have to actually be an active part of the family. That's left to the parent who stays at home. The parent who stays at home and takes care of everything can't have anything for themselves because they have to take care of everything first before they have any value. And there is where we had start of toxic masculinity. Did you guys know that in the 1960s, women were required, you guys, to run up and down the street in front of a police academy officer to see if their breasts were going to interfere with their ability to chase a suspect. Yes, you heard that correct. In the 60s. In 1974, California ordered the first child support to be paid when a child was not on receiving welfare. So if mom had a job and she was doing what she needed to do for herself and her children, it wasn't until 1974 that they ordered child support. So you can see why our culture has been so toxic and so like pounding on our males and people who provide the role of provider for their families. And it's simply that it is just a what society thought. Now we are with a society of people, and we have up and coming people who realize the importance of a whole family structure, a structure that is based on two loving parents, this no matter what their sex is, two loving parents to raise the children. So it is important that we start talking about these kind of things so that those old school men, like the one I'm married to, realize that we're not attacking your masculinity. We're not asking you to be less masculine. We're asking you not to be toxic. And there's a big difference between the two. So when we're talking about toxic masculinity, what we're talking about is the cultural pressure for men or the work provider, the one who's going to go out and earn the money, to behave in a certain way. And the negative aspects of this are what exaggerate the toxic traits in a man. So, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is there is a physical aggression. You got to be the big burly man, and you absolutely cannot in any way, shape, or form show your emotion. Okay, you can't tell your spouse that you love them because that means that you're weak. You can't show that emotion. You can't hug and kiss on your kids and teach them a better way to live because that means you're weak. The other toxic traits I have little or no room for whatsoever. Okay, we can work with a lot of things, but a lot of these next ones I'm going to tell you about have started to really fall with the generations coming up. Discriminations that are happening against anybody who is not heterosexual. Yeah, okay, so you're gay and I'm straight, but somehow your gayness over here is going to translate over here and it's going to come here. No, it doesn't work that way. If you're gay, you're gay. If you're straight, you're straight. That's the way it works. But with toxic masculinity, they believe that it's catching and they can't be anywhere near it. And gay people are undermining the foundation of the American family. Yeah, I'll see your three marriages to your 45-year marriage, okay? You were with one partner for 45 years. That doesn't mean that they're heterosexual. I know gay couples that have been married that long. They also have a hyper independence. And the other, what I mean by hyper independence is that they have no need or feel no remorse to making all the money, giving the stay at home parent, say, the money to run the household, take care of the kids, and buy whatever that person needs. And then they go spend the rest of it on themselves. They don't got to come home. They can go to the bar with their buddies. They can go shoot pool with their buddies, be gone every night of the week and not feed into the family structure. That is a toxic masculinity trait. The other ones, again, it's really hard for me to talk about this, but it's sexual aggression or violence because they truly, people who are toxic masculine, who have toxic masculinity, truly believe that their partner owes it to them to have sex with it. They're entitled to that sex because they bring home a paycheck. Oh, please. Y'all know how I feel about that. And the other thing is they have an anti-feminist behavior. They are so scared of being emasculated that they fight against anything that empowers the stay-at-home parent, that empowers the females to go out and do things, to achieve greatness within themselves. When we all know the best thing to do is actually to support your partner and give, it's a partnership. That's why it's called a partnership. We support each other, we love each other. That's the way it works. With toxic masculinity, it does not work that way whatsoever. So now that I've done that, I'd like you guys to welcome my special guest. Secular Rarity is here to talk about toxic masculinity and the effects that it is having on relationships, on us as people, and as a society as a whole. So hi,
Yeah.
Sar, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Mama Deb?
I am actually really good. You can tell I'm a little bit passionate about this. I feel like I'm yelling at everybody.
No,
Um,
you did so great. Honestly, you don't even need me. Like you
oh,
got this. Like
oh, please. No, I don't think so. Well, the reason that I ask SR here to talk about this tonight is truly that he has this great ability to break things down and get to the core and then discuss the core of it. And he's truly a what I call a lost art because he's a philosopher and he really can bring it out and look at things just and lay it out and go, this is what we have. And that's one of the things that I really enjoy the most about USR is that it
Thank
is
you.
you have the ability to do that for people because some people don't will not understand this. They'll think we're attacking their
Yeah.
manhood when in actuality we are not. We're attacking
Yeah.
their toxicity, which is different. But so give me some of your initial thoughts about toxic masculinity.
Yeah. I can say, one thing for me, that's really interesting when you delve into a lot of different work on toxic masculinity is a lot of us will find how it has affected us um, in a pretty casual day to day type sense, and we didn't even recognize it. And one aspect of it for me was this, as you had mentioned, the kind of some of those traits. One of them that had kind of instilled itself in me for a while was a definite discrimination against people that aren't strictly heterosexual, strictly these boxes that are so poorly defined to begin with, but also really try very hard to force people into these little categories. And it took a really, really long time of trying to actually pay attention to some of these attitudes that I had. Now, I had gay friends my whole life. I had it wasn't like I had never been around somebody that didn't exactly fit into that box. It was that even with that feeling and saying to myself, "Oh, hey, there's nothing wrong with being gay," there was still this kind of internalized, "Oh yeah, but I don't want to be." Like I can't act like this because then people might think I'm gay, and then if I'm
Yes.
not gay, then that's not cool. And that is something that exists inside a lot of us. And again, it's something that is not as well focused on as it needs to be for a lot of us, because we think it just isn't something that applies. I mean, one of the things that I was looking through, over the last week as we were getting ready for this, it had a whole section on just the phrase "no homo," and when I was a kid, that was something that we said to each other all the freaking
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, it wasn't it never registered to me what I was saying. It never made
Yeah.
sense that what I was
Yeah.
saying could be harmful to people.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started to realize that, hey, like why would I put this label on it? Like, why do I have to go out of my way to try and act like there's some subtext going on here that nobody else is picking up? Like, I asked my friend for a drink of his water bottle. No homo, bro. Like, what? Like, what the hell? Why would I need to? But again, it's that internalized attitude that you don't
Mm-hmm.
realize.
Mm-hmm.
The hyper independence was another thing. There was always this idea in my head that I had to show everybody that I can do everything, right? It
Mm-hmm.
didn't matter
Yes.
what it was. It
Yeah.
was just, oh no, I got this. No, 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 I got this. You're good. You're good. Thanks so much. And they're like, oh man, I mean, we can tell you're actually like struggling to
Mm-hmm.
carry this thing. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
sure you don't need an extra pair of hands? Like, no, 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 I got. Even with other men, there's this competition attitude to a level that is, again, just so far out of the way to like make something a competition to show I'm the big strong guy,
Yeah.
when in reality, like, that doesn't define me. It doesn't define anybody. Like,
No.
if you're strong, awesome. If you have a bunch of muscles and you can deadlift 400 pounds, that's awesome. Like,
Good
I'm
for
not taking
you.
away that. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea that that's what you have
Mm. Yeah.
to be a whole person,
Mm-hmm.
right,
Mm-hmm.
is silly. Again, these are things that are so ingrained in us a lot of
Oh,
times.
yes.
We just don't recognize them until we start to talk about them.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm glad you said it right up at the front. It isn't about trying to take away anybody's
No.
masculinity. It
No.
isn't about trying to box off what is being a man or masculine and saying this is all crap and we should throw it all away. It's
Mm-hmm.
none of that at all. It's honestly, it's behaviors that are toxic for anybody. It doesn't
Yes.
matter who you are. It doesn't matter how
Mm-hmm.
old you are. If you are acting in this way, these are harmful behaviors, not just
Yes.
to other people, but yourself. It
Yes.
causes you to, there are so many studies that show that so many men in the United States refuse basic medical treatment, um,
Yes.
because they don't want to be seen as a woman. Like,
Mm-hmm.
wait a second, it's womanly to like go take care of your health. That sounds like a really good thing, you
Yeah,
guys.
it's womanly to admit, oh crap, I fractured my arm. Maybe duct tape is not the answer here.
I mean,
Okay.
holy crap, right?
Yeah.
Or like, why in the world did it ever get to the spot where uh a guy is in a space that he's never been in before and he just won't pull over and ask for directions? Like, that's something that we've actually done studies on this stuff, and we've
Yes.
shown that there is a group of people out there that are like,
Mm-hmm.
nah, I don't do that. I'm a man. I don't need to ask where I'm going. It's like, what? Like, of course you do. Like, there are places all over the world you've never been to. What's wrong with not being perfect on geography? Like,
Exactly. And you just sounded like so much like my dad. My dad's like, I got my map here. I can do this. I'm like, Dad, we have Google now. It can show
mhm,
you step by step. Oh, I don't need it. I don't need
yeah.
it. I'm like, oh, for crying out loud, Dad.
We put
Okay.
satellites into space and connected them with all kinds of incredible technology. I don't know why the hell we don't just use it, y'all. See?
That is a very, very good question. And I think that what I at least see from my own life is that it's just such an older generation thing.
Mm,
Like my grandparents and my parents, even with like my struggles with mental health, it is a hush hush, shh, don't say nothing
yeah.
to anybody. And I decided to quit living under that veil, and I came out and I tried to bring it to the light so other people can get help. That is a
Mm.
huge issue with men. And they
Yep.
don't they think that makes them weak. It doesn't make you weak, it makes you human.
Yeah.
It just makes you, if you need help, then ask for the help and get the help. I mean, it
Yeah.
was ridiculous that it took me 6 months of begging and pleading to get my husband to go see a doctor. The doctor said, your wife is right, you are depressed and you need to be on something, you have
Yeah.
seasonal depression. There's nothing wrong. My husband's not a weak man, he's a big burly masculine guy, but he's not toxic, and that was one of the toxic things that he does that drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, it doesn't make you less, it makes you absolutely 100% human, and being human should be the goal that we have
Hmm.
for everybody, in my opinion.
Hmm. And you mentioned it earlier too, which is really good. That I mean, again, there's so many aspects of it, um, but one way that we can see how this really affects, because even though it is focused in general, we find these traits in a lot of men,
Hmm.
cis men, cis het men generally,
Yeah.
but um, this spills over into the rest of the world in a lot of different ways. And one of the ways in relationships, like you had mentioned again at the beginning, which is perfect, is the idea of a relationship being a partnership as
Yes.
opposed to a competition,
Yes.
is definitely something that, again, even, I was in a space for a long time, and I'm not perfect on anything, believe me. Like, I don't know that there will ever be a day in my life where I'm not working through some of these things. And part of it was just because as a child, it was so normalized to act
Hmm.
certain ways and to be
Hmm.
certain ways and to express things in a particular manner, that again, it just got to a point where years would go by and it would be like, oh, holy crap, I do this and that's
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
But when I see this a lot where there's, again, a heterosexual couple out, a man and a woman,
Hmm.
and, it gets to a point where somebody has to pay,
Yes.
and the man not paying is such a blow,
Yes.
to like everything about his character, which
Hmm.
is again something that truly it's still, there's still a part of the back of my brain that's just like, oh, get your wallet out, get your
Yeah.
wallet out.
No,
And
absolutely.
I have to learn that, a, like, if I'm with somebody, there's nothing wrong about me if I don't pay.
No, there isn't.
There isn't anything there. I don't have to go out of my way to open a fucking door for somebody or pull
Hmm.
chairs out or like this. There's nothing wrong with me caring about somebody and wanting to do those things to be nice,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Hey, let's go out to dinner tonight, on me. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with
Exactly.
that.
No.
But the toxic part is when I feel as if I have to do this. I have to be engaged in this activity because at the end of the day, the reason that I'm doing that is because I want to show that I'm the big dog. I want to
Yes.
show that I'm the one really in charge,
Yes.
Like
Yes.
this is my house. I come in here, I slap down my fucking wallet, man. I pay whatever I want. I don't care. I got this. And that's,
Yeah.
again, it's something that absolutely is toxic for yourself,
Oh,
but it's toxic
absolutely.
for others because you're
Hmm.
not treating the other person in the relationship as if they're actually involved in the relationship. They're a tool for you to get those good feels of being in charge.
And that is exactly what it is. They become a tool
Yeah.
because they're not an equal partner. Because I've been told my whole life relationships are 50-50, and I think
Mhm.
that's bullshit. I do. And the reason why is because each relationship is 100%, 100%. Because some days I can't give 100 and I need you to pick up the slack. And that's
Mhm.
what we do for each other because we respect and love each other.
Mhm.
And like what you were saying about, treating them, pulling out their chair for them, we really struggle as a family because my boys were taught to open the door and pull out a
Sure.
chair for your partner, and their partners at the time was like, I don't need you to do that. And I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, can I talk to you a little bit? I'm like, it's not that he knows you could do it all by yourself. He knows you can. He knows you're a strong woman, but what he's trying to show you is respect and love. He
Sure.
respects you and he loves you. And this is why he's doing that nice thing for him. Same reason that you lean over and unlock the door for him once he opens the door for you.
Mhm.
that's it's a mutual give and take, and I think that is something that we really need to normalize more in our society,
Mhm.
is having that mutual give and take and the mutual respect between partners.
Yeah.
Because I know that, like, when I was doing this research for the show, I was looking at a therapist, Jacqueline Mendez, out of Los Angeles.
Mhm.
She's a sex and family therapist, and she says one of the absolute hardest things to get past in a with toxic masculinity is that they are unemotional, but they must
Mhm.
be in control, and they consider themselves above their partner,
Yeah.
regardless of what the gender is. They
Yeah.
consider themselves above. They think, I can do whatever I want. I provided enough for my family with my time and my money. I don't have to do anything else.
Mhm.
And that is something that I think is still running rampant in America. I really do, because
Mhm.
it is, in my opinion, is quite normal to have one parent who works and one parent who does not work
Sure.
to take care of the kids. That's what has to happen. When you got young ones, that's what has to happen. But the work that the non outside of the house parent is doing is invaluable. You can is that the right word? I don't think that's right. I think it's valuable. It's incredibly valuable, because there's no way for that house to work
Mhm.
unless that parent is there doing that.
For sure.
So when we have people saying, oh, well, I did this, I did that, it's not a competition, honey. I know
Mhm.
you went to
Mhm.
work for 8 hours, but I've been here with the
Mhm.
kids for freaking 10 hours too. Can we both get a break? Can we both do
Yeah.
what we need to do? And that's something that I think we've seen a little bit more of here in the United States, is starting to see the change, because we're seeing more stay at home dads.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that is actually a good thing, because it's showing our young people, who are the generations coming up, that mom or dad can stay home and I'm still going
Yep.
to get the same loving parental relationship that I get, even if it was the other parent. And I
Yeah.
think that's important, especially, and I hate to say this, y'all, and call me, I don't know, but I think it's especially important for our young men, because our young men need to see that dad is at home, dad is
Mhm.
involved, or I'm sorry, the working parent or the non whatever it may be, that they're involved, and it's okay to be involved, and it's okay
Yeah.
to love your family and be into the family and support it. That's so important, because when I grew up, I mean, I'm a little bit older than you. I mean, quite a bit older than you, actually.
Mhm.
Um, Men did not stay at home. Absolutely did
Right.
not know what you were considered weak if you did it. And women had to ask their husbands for everything.
Mhm.
And that's not something I want. I don't want my children to see that. I don't want my children to see that um one one partner lords over the other one. I think
Right.
it's a horrible example to set. So,
Yeah.
um so the other things that the therapist said was that there are absolute, and this is what I was kind of talking to, the overt acts of sexism.
Mm. Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
You're not working, therefore you have to do all the work at home, and it's not as valuable as my time, because I'm taking in a paycheck.
Yep.
And the thing is that whoever the parent is that is home, we need to realize the job that they're doing to build our children, to teach our children, to show them emotion and love, which is what makes them good people. And for someone who is having issues with toxic masculinity, they tend to do that, be very sexist, and they're subtle and they're sly, because the stuff slides into a relationship, easily bleeds in. We, like, one minute you find that everything's hunky dory peachy keen, and the next thing
Mhm.
you know, you're asking your partner, "Hey, I need extra money because I need tampons." This is kind of the way that I
Mhm.
look at it. So, what are your
Mhm.
thoughts on that?
Yeah. There's a lot there for sure. Um, I think one of the biggest problems can definitely be related to that inability to experience the full range of human emotions. Because how are you ever supposed to truly be a partner with somebody if you aren't allowing yourself to really feel all these thoughts and feelings, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you can't express when you feel bad, right? If you can't express when you feel sad, if the only thing you can ever really express and get validation from other people on is that anger and aggression,
Mhm.
Well, that's all you're going to do. And it's going to be this cycle where you're just angry about being angry, about being angry and angry. And it's like, what the hell am I even angry about right now? And you don't
Yeah,
know, you're just
exactly.
mad.
Yeah.
And even though we have seen, I think, a huge positive shift over the last handful of years, I we still have a lot of spaces that definitely perpetuate this garbage.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna mention the feller's name just because I
Mhm.
don't like him, but there is somebody that recently was kicked off of many a platform for saying many things like this, and
Yeah.
a lot of that is exactly what you were talking about. It's very sexist behavior.
Mhm.
It's very limiting,
Oh, yes,
because
absolutely.
it just straight up cuts people and says, this isn't part of you, that you can't
Mhm.
do that. That's not
Mhm.
part of who you're allowed to be.
Yep.
And so it very quickly gets to this traditional gender roles type thing,
Mhm.
and it doesn't allow for any other type of look. You got to be a cishet woman, you got to be a cishet man, and a
Mhm.
cishet woman just does this,
Mhm.
and a cishet man just does this, and
Yes.
anybody else that doesn't fit that paradigm
Mhm.
is just
It's
it
wrong.
is ridiculed. And right,
Yes.
you're wrong.
Mhm.
There's something inherently problematic with you, when in reality, when we actually look at these people that even self diagnose as, hey, I fit this box perfectly of cishet man, right? Well,
Mhm.
when we talk to those people, we come to find out, like, wait a second, like, you have a range of emotions just like all people. Like, you get sad sometimes too.
Yes.
Like, it's
Yes.
okay. Like, you saw a commercial, it was this guy and his dog, and he was petting his dog, and it was some nice, beautiful music in the background, and you kind of teared up. That's okay, dude.
Yes,
That's not
exactly.
that doesn't
You
make
know,
you less than.
and that's exactly it. That's the whole point of what I was talking about, is that when men or any parent is allowed to feel their range of emotions,
Mhm.
it actually sets a better example for our children, because they
Absolutely.
realize that, oh, it's okay to feel this way. It's
Mhm.
okay to um, be upset. It's okay to, you know, have feelings of depression or anxiety. It's okay.
Mhm.
I can bring it to either parent, and the parents are going to help me work this out, which
Yeah.
brings that. And this is what cracks me up, because when people, old school men, are saying toxic masculinity, that's not a thing, da 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 da. Well, in actuality, sir, it is,
Yeah.
because you think your way, man working, woman staying at home, builds a family. No, sir. What builds a family is having two loving parents who support their children in
Yeah.
all things. That's
Yeah.
what builds it. And that is why I don't understand the whole concept of toxic masculinity that is still present in some of our younger generations. Like my generation, is definitely still there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the other thing that I found is that um the thing that really bothers me the most, I think, is because I was in a situation like this, is that in the way that people who have toxic masculinity exert themselves in a relationship is by taking over control of the finances.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
they
Mhm.
literally say, you can't, because I work, I tell you how the money gets spent. It don't work that way,
Right.
because the person who's working can say, hey, you know what? I gave you, this is the household budget. It's $400.
Mhm.
Okay, that's the household budget. What about the kids' budget? What about my budget? Because I'm
Yeah.
working, I'm raising our family, and I need value as well.
Right.
That person will go out and say, buy a new motorcycle. Won't check with their
Mm.
spouse,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
the mom,
Well,
the
it's
stay
their money, right? I mean,
exactly. The stay-at-home parent is like, what am I supposed to do?
mm,
I need socks. I need
yeah.
new underwear. But they have to pay for everything for the kids and for the household before they have any scrap of money left.
Mhm.
And that's, I think, the thing that absolutely draws me into my next point, which is that toxic masculinity is a form of abuse.
Yes.
It is
Yes, it is.
absolutely a form of abuse.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be male and female. It could be female, female, male, male. It doesn't, that is not what matters. It could be non binary and non binary. It doesn't matter. what matters is the way that we treat each other, and the way that you look upon your spouse as not an equal, less than you, because they stay at home and care for the kids and the family. And
Yeah.
that's, I mean, I find that it is so hard it's hard to get old school people to understand the differences, of like a same-sex marriage,
Hmm. Hmm.
non-binary people, the they them instead of yes ma'am or sir. It's hard enough to get them
Hmm.
to understand that, but when we start throwing, going, okay, this is the way it is, they're like, ah, their mind is completely blown because they don't know where to go, and they don't
Yeah.
know what to do with it. So I think that the responsibility for changing this kind of stuff, and the generation who's out there right now, you guys are doing a freaking fantastic job. You really are, because you're making it mainstream. You're telling people, no, we're not going to be this way anymore. And I mean, what do you think, like, the future is? Do you think that we're going to make that big change and we're going to make it a norm? Or do you think we're fighting an uphill battle?
Yeah. So this was something that popped into my head earlier, because when you were talking about stay at home dads being something that we see more and more.
Yeah.
I saw a tweet like I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago, and I don't know who it was. I think it was just some random person. A lot of people ended up really liking it and sharing it, but it said something along the lines of like got told that childcare, was going to raise their rates or something, and so um, my wife's job is much better. She's been there longer. She has more opportunity. So she, kept her job, and I stayed at home with the kids. And then basically the rest of the tweet was this father listing all of these super cool things that he did with his kids that day.
Right.
And at the
Right.
end of it, it was like my daughter just looked up at me and said something like, "Daddy, this was the best day ever," or something. And it was so wholesome and heartwarming, because it was like for the first time, really in this guy's life, he's able to actually get to connect with his kids in a way that he never had before.
Yes.
And that beautiful story is something
Mhm.
that is looked down upon from this ideology, that a father giving up his job so that the person that he is married to can continue living their life
Mhm.
and working their career and taking care of his children, spending his whole freaking day doing nothing but caring about his kids. That is a beautiful story, no matter how you slice it, in my opinion. And
Oh,
yet
absolutely.
this ideology looks down on that. It says that guy is less than now. He's not as good as he used to be. um I do think, though, to kind of come back to your
Mhm.
question there, I do think that we are getting better in this. It's not everywhere in the world for sure, and there are various reasons as to why that's the case in different locations. In the US, we definitely have made a lot of progress, but unfortunately, there is still a lot of ground to be made up. I
Mhm.
mean, like I said earlier, there's a handful of different people that I could very easily list off that have huge platforms and speak to millions and millions of people around the world.
Mhm.
Um, and a lot of those people are um, single, angry, cishet white guys,
Yes.
and they latch on, and they stay with it.
Mhm.
And I understand being angry. I get angry. We all get angry.
Yes.
The issue is in regards to whether or not we're investigating where that anger is coming from. Because a lot of times the reasons that we're feeling like this is because of a sadness, a loneliness that we're experiencing. And this
Absolutely.
leads to a lot of really, really bad things.
Mhm.
Um, one of them being the fact that I want to say it was, and I just had it pulled up. I think I can probably find it real quick. Okay, so a 2017 um, 2017 study published by the Violence Policy Center shows that 93% of murdered female victims were killed by male perpetrators they already knew.
Yes. That scares the crap out of me.
And
It
that
really
that
does.
is that is something that absolutely is not talked about enough, in my
No,
opinion. We
no.
do not talk about the fact that the ramifications of this are death.
Hmm.
That's what this is. That's where this goes to.
Exactly.
And whether it's in that capacity or whether it's in the capacity that men in the United States are almost 4 times as likely to commit suicide, both of these aspects are
Hmm.
problems. And
Yes.
it's not that one is worse than the other. It's not that we no, we have to tackle both of these. And
Yes.
one way that we can do that is by tackling this ideology that says, I have to be the one in charge. I have to be the one that controls everything. I
Hmm.
mean, growing up in Tennessee, even in the time that I have grown up, I can tell you it is so prevalent. It
Yes.
is so invasive on everything
Hmm.
that you have to be the strong dude in the room. You got to be the one that
Of
shows
course.
everybody that you can perform the riskiest, most dangerous behavior. you
Yeah.
you got to be the one that can lift the strongest thing, or
Or
whatever the hell it is.
or you
um
have the most control over the parent that stays at home and you rule with an iron fist.
mhm.
That's it's
I can't tell you how many times um I've heard men, talking about their wives in such, derogatory ways that make me say to myself, like, dude, it sounds like you don't like this person. Like, it sounds like,
right.
honestly, you just
Yes.
don't like them. Why would you keep staying with this person if you just, I mean, it's the dumbest thing ever. Like,
Yeah.
why, if the way that you feel about your partner, and again, this is because toxic masculinity is so bad at understanding, the broad spectrum of humanity and sexuality and gender and everything.
Hmm.
It's all very cishet focused. um, but if you're a man and you're married to a lady that you just can't say anything nice about, dude, fucking divorce. Like, don't be in that marriage. Like, it's crazy to me that these guys, it's almost like they get a sense of pleasure of, like, overcoming this
Yes.
challenge of their wife that nags them all the time to do
Hmm.
things like
Hmm.
go make sure your child is in bed, those,
Right.
such burdens.
Horrible, horrible, right? I mean, and that I think the thing we saw like in the late 80s, no, it was probably in the 90s actually, is we saw a whole generation of men going, well, why am I not getting dates? Why are these
Mm,
women so bitchy to me? Why are they
yeah.
always turning me down? Well, they owe me. Okay, sweetheart, we are not own anything in this
Hmm.
world. No one is. You have to work for what you got, okay?
Right.
And the reason people are turning you down is because you're a shit human being. It has
Right.
nothing to do with you being male or there being female. It's because you're a shit human being.
Right.
And
Right.
we saw that whole thing with the example that pops in my head is the Lacey Peterson murders. He
Oh, yeah.
would rather have killed his wife and unborn child instead of divorcing her and giving up half of what
Hmm.
he had. What the hell?
Yeah.
How is finance or money more important than the seed of your loin and the woman you pledged to love for the rest of your life? How is that more important? And that whole thought process is
Yeah.
just, it completely throws, it makes it so that women in this day and age don't feel like they can trust men.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I read a very interesting study that if a man walks into a room and it's at a bar and he sees all these women, he thinks, ho ho, I got a good chance of getting lucky tonight, right?
Hmm.
A woman
Yeah.
walks into a bar and sees all these men, her first thought is, I better protect my drink.
I need to get the hell out of here. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Uh,
something horrible is going to happen to me tonight.
yes.
And that is something that as a society we need to focus on, because it's
Yeah.
not acceptable to treat one or another sex like they are less than you are because of of body parts, for crying out loud. I mean,
Hmm.
honestly,
Hmm.
I know transgender people, and I in never in a million freaking years could I ever imagine the transgender males that I know treating me like I am less than any them because I am female. I cannot imagine it.
Yeah.
And I think that they have a perspective on this whole thing because they do come from where they come from. They're making their journey to their final destination and finally
Mhm.
who they are. But those are the people we need to listen to. And for God's sake, society screams, ah, the churches scream, no, because, God chooses your gender. Okay, no, science
Oh,
chooses your gender. Okay, that's all about XY chromosome type of stuff. So I think that the answer, and you tell me if you agree or not, I think honestly the answer to this is to listen to people who have both perspectives. They're like
mm,
male, female, the male, whatever the case may be. But we can honestly stop this problem if we just start listening to the people that society says are piranhas or
yeah.
not acceptable because they're different.
Yeah. I think definitely one of the number one ways that anybody that anybody that is struggling with these ideas, um, the number one thing you should start doing is start asking trans people, start
Mhm.
asking women, start asking people that have actually felt the ramifications of the garbage that we are internalizing on a regular basis. And it's not. I understand that's not the easiest thing to do. And
It is
also, like,
not.
don't take this as an opportunity to just run down every trans person or woman
Agreed.
that like, don't, like, calm the fuck down for a second, chill out,
Mhm.
be friends with
Mhm.
people, and get to know them and stuff. But um Mama Deb, I think you just posted that link that I had put in the private chat, which I greatly appreciate.
Yeah.
This is a spoken word poem that was actually done by an organization in Middle Tennessee a few years ago. And it's really good. It's only about 5 minutes, y'all. If you get a chance after, please just check it out just because it's nice. But the whole point is to say that violence against women is a man's issue. And what they're saying is that this is not something that we push off onto others and say, "Oh no, look what's happening." This is
Mhm.
something that is being caused and perpetuated by us. We're the ones that are doing it.
Yes.
Um, and I won't give it all away, but it kind of focuses around an old tale that was told where these villagers would stay up and wait every night and watch for lions because every so often they would find that one of the villagers was taken and killed at night by a lion.
Mhm.
And it got to the point where, a bunch of women started asking questions and they said, how come the lions never come when the women stay up as well? When the men stay up and they watch the village, for
Mm.
some reason the
Mhm.
lion still comes. And it's because, as the story goes, one
Mhm.
night a couple of women stayed up without letting the men know, and they walked into one of the huts and they found exactly what the problem was. The problem was not lions. We are the lions.
Yes.
And that's the point of it. It's
Yes.
an ideology that seeps inside of you to a point that you believe that, again, you're owed things.
Mhm.
Other things are just tools for you to get those things.
Mhm.
People are not people, they're just objects.
Exactly.
um because you can control an object.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
can tell this water bottle what to do all freaking day. It's never going to backsass me.
Yes, sir.
um but for some reason, when you start speaking with people,
Mhm.
some people think your ideas are crap and they're not going to do that. And if you've always been told you're the one that gets everything, you're the one in charge, when
Mhm.
you're approached with that, especially the first couple of times, you lash out and you do that because this is so foreign to you, when in reality, you're just starting to live in a world that everybody else lives in.
Mhm.
Again, not that memes are the end all of great thinking, but sometimes they're not
They're
bad.
very helpful. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I saw
Yes.
I saw one the other day, and it was it was purposefully, again, trying to be kind of stereotypical on this. And it was a little boy that had just logged on to, like, some online gaming platform, and he was like, hey, does anybody have mics, do you guys talk? And then it shows this other character, who, again, stereotypically female, says, replies to him and says, "Oh, hey, are you a boy? Oh, I think that's so awesome that boys play video games. Hey, look, I want to let you know that, you're safe. This is a spot here that we really value our boys when they play video games. Hey, are you single, by the way? What's your number? Could you like trade Snapchat?" And it was that shift that was just
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, yeah,
Mhm.
imagine what it is like on the other side. And for the people that are very deep into toxic masculinity and displaying these behaviors on a regular basis, they are people that um, have never had that moment
Yes.
where you see the world from a different perspective. and
Yes.
and back to kind of a minute ago, this is a spot where, yeah, it's really super valuable to go and speak with people that have lived and a completely different life than you.
Mhm.
um, Understand gender, sexuality, gender roles, gender expression, understand what it means to be a man and a woman in a different aspect than you,
Yes.
especially if this is what you've grown up with. If this is what
Yes.
you've grown up
Yes.
with, I can just honestly tell you it's actually not reflective of reality. This is
No.
not the way the world works. It's
Mm-mm.
the way that a small group of people try to exert their control and influence over other people. That's really where it is.
No, that's
Um,
absolutely true.
yeah, and again, we have made a lot of progress,
Mhm.
but there is still a lot of ways to go because there are people out there that are still perpetuating these ridiculous and harmful ideas. And again, the vast majority of them come back to controlling women, and there's a reason for
Absolutely.
that. There's
Absolutely.
a reason that's part of it, and it's because of the idea that women are less than. They are
Mhm.
inherently not as good as men,
Mhm.
and therefore, it's right that I'm in charge of you. It's right
Yes.
that I'm telling you what to do. When again, you
It
just
really it isn't.
take
Yeah.
a deep breath and
Yeah.
relax a little. The world will be better. But
And like in my early 20s, because I'm 52, so 20s, my 20s were 30 years ago. I chose a career path that was not something that women should do. I became a paramedic and I
yeah,
was an EMT. And when I got hired on at my first EMT job, I was the only woman in that company, the
mm,
only one except for office staff. And everybody came out, and I'm not kidding you, every single male showed up to make sure I could pass the lift test. And the
oh
lift
yeah,
test was a two-man gurney, and you had to lift 250 pounds.
yeah,
Well, I'm a pretty strong girl. So I lifted that 250 pounds and I didn't do it. And then the next thing they said, well, what about isolates? She's not going to be able to load the isolates. And I'm like, let's do it. I was
hmm
19. I'm like, come on, come on.
yeah,
So I lifted the isolate also and loaded it. And they're like, and I'm like, I guess you're going to have to hire me
mm,
because I passed every test there was. And I went on to have a very successful, like 22-year career as a paramedic. But it, having to prove myself over and over and over again because I was a woman
right,
got really tiresome and it made me very bitter.
hmm
And especially after I had babies, they were like, "Why don't you stay home with your babies?" Well, why would I do that? They have a dad. Their
yeah,
dad can stay home and I can work. And
yeah,
because we were a dual income household, not because we needed to be, because I needed to be for my
right,
mental health. I needed to get outside of the house and do a job. And for people to say that a woman is neglecting her duty because she chooses to work outside the home is such a
yeah,
horrible thing, because being a mom and having a job there's enough guilt that you we lay on ourselves. We lay enough guilt. Oh, I miss sweetie pie's nap time 3 times this week, and oh, I
mhm,
should have been there. No, no. We put enough guilt on ourselves. We don't need any help in that category
yeah,
whatsoever. Where the supportive partner would be, hey, I know it's the first nap you missed. I sent you a little video of him going down for a nap. And that's a loving, um, respectful relationship that children should be raised in, because
yeah,
they're going to learn that I should love and support my spouse in all things. I should love and support my mom and dad, not based on any brutality,
mhm,
but just on the fact that they love me.
right,
And
because they treat you right.
They treat you right. And that's one of the things that I actually had the hardest time with when I was raising my children, because I was raised with the you don't do it because I said so. There's no
Mm,
explanation. I said
mhm,
no, and that's the end of it.
mhm.
Don't ask any questions.
Yeah.
But I had to make a really big role reversal, or a big thought process reversal, I should say, because I wanted to raise free thinkers. I wanted to give them the ability to think for themselves. So I really had to rein that back. And I encouraged my children to ask questions. Now, if you ask my dad, why you let your kids question you?
Mm.
Because they're human beings
Yeah.
and they have the right to express themselves in what is appropriate. Well, why do you let your daughter raise her voice to you? Well, I raised my voice at my daughter, so she should be allowed to do the same thing to me because she's a human being. And
Right.
I think that is, if we could take that section right there and we could just put it into everybody's mind to understand that,
Mm.
hey, raising the next generation, it's important that we show mutual respect, love, and understanding for each other. It would make a huge difference in the fight that we have ahead of us. What do you think
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah, for sure. And that's one of the reasons I think it's so ridiculous and silly when I hear some of these talking heads that are you know, expressing concern about the erosion of masculinity. It's like, what are we eroding right now? Because currently all it means to be a man in your eyes is be a dick to people,
Yes,
and
yes.
that's about it, bro. So I don't know what erosion is occurring, but
And they also say, the one that really drives me crazy is they say the erosion of the family unit. No, we're
Mhm,
not
mhm.
eroding anything by asking for change. We're actually
Right.
strengthening and bringing up a higher level, a higher quality human being, because
Absolutely.
they absolutely will love without question. It doesn't matter. Now, in this day and age, you love and respect your partner despite what their sex is, despite what they,
Mhm.
or not despite, but because of their sex, or because of their gender, or I think I'm kind of getting that out of context. But the point is you all should respect your spouse and show your children how to respect and love your spouse. And that's something that's not erosion. That is strengthening the family unit.
Mhm. And again, it I think one thing that is always so interesting is, when you do have that initial pushback from somebody who you say toxic masculinity, they go, "Whoa, what's wrong with being a guy?" And then like
Yes.
you try to explain some stuff to them, and then somebody says something like, well, that just sounds like good policy for everybody. It's like, yeah, that's kind of the
That's
point, man.
exactly the
You're
point, man.
Thanks. You're sort of catching it. Like you kind of got it.
Mhm.
Yeah, we don't want anybody just being harmful to each other. We don't want,
Exactly.
like, it's also bad if there's a cishet woman out there who says things like, "Well, you as the man have to always be strong and you have to do
No.
this and you have."
Yeah.
That's also
Oh,
still problematic.
absolutely.
It's just that, again, funny enough, when we go look at the statistics, when we go see who is really perpetuating this idea, a lot of it tends to be cishet white guys. That's
Yeah, it does.
just the case of it.
Mhm.
And again, this is our fight because we are the ones that are the problems. And if
Mhm.
we're the ones that are the problems, then it only gets fixed with us.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
not protect your women, right? It's not protect your girls. It's train your boys,
Yes.
teach your men to
Yes.
understand the
Yes.
correct way to behave to people, not
Yes.
not the correct way to behave around a woman. Because I remember a story from my high school where one of the teachers was essentially bragging that he had just scarred his 5-year-old for life because he took his 5-year-old behind his shed, cocked a shotgun, and then fired it at a Target close by, and then, like, turned to his 5-year-old boy and was like, "You ever lay your hands on a woman, this is what's gonna happen to you." And it's like,
Holy shit.
exactly, exactly. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you the amount of trauma that is going to inflict
Pause.
on,
Mhm.
and this kid is gonna have no idea for years. Years of his life are gonna go by, and one day he's, hopefully is gonna have a moment where he says, "Holy this has been fucking me up since I've been a child.
Yeah.
And because of things like that, because of this attitude of women are not able to take care of themselves, that
Hmm.
they are fragile, they have to be babied. Again, you came and you stood there and they said, hey, look, you just got to do this test, you got to lift
Hmm.
this gurney, we do it for everybody. Boom, you knock it out. And the first thing out of their mouth is, oh, well, she
What?
probably
Wow.
can't do
Yeah.
this one.
Yeah.
She
Exactly.
probably can't do this one over here, so I don't know, maybe we'll
Exactly.
have to it's like, come on, you
Yeah.
don't act that way towards anybody else. You do that specifically because of
I'm
this.
a woman. Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
This internalized understanding that, you couldn't possibly match up to how good it is being a man. You couldn't
Yeah.
possibly ever meet the same criteria that I meet because I'm a man and I'm better.
Hmm.
Um, and again, this is a problem that cannot be solved if we as men are not willing to act, if we're not willing to call out bad behavior when we see it,
Hmm.
if we're
Hmm.
not willing to stand up and say, this is not something that defines me, this is not something that I think is valuable for society, and
Hmm.
we need to be better than this.
Yes.
Again, we have definitely, I was really excited over the last couple of years. There has been, for various reasons, but one, obviously, a global pandemic has caused people to kind of have to, you know, deal with some of this a little bit more.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's a good and bad thing, because some of the ways that it got dealt with were very bad, and we
Yes.
saw a lot of domestic violence jump up around
Hmm.
the world.
Hmm.
But also we also we also saw a lot of people trying to come to terms with their actions.
Yes. Yes.
And that's great. And I think that's really, really awesome that there are more people out there that are trying to have these conversations. Um, and for anybody, again, for anybody out there that is in a boat where they're trying to deconstruct some of these, thoughts for themselves,
Hmm.
please understand, like, compassion is one of the biggest things that will help here,
Yes,
because
sir.
basically every one of the traits that Mama Deb listed off right at the beginning, they are anti-compassion.
Hmm.
They are the complete and total opposite of that. And one of the best things to remember about compassion is you gotta have it for yourself. You
Yes.
gotta give it to yourself,
Yes.
because we're not gonna be perfect. And the idea of attempting to be perfect, right? Because what happens sometimes is you get in this loop where you're like, oh yeah, I gotta stop being such a toxically masculine dude. Okay, cool. So now I'm being better here. But wait a second, I'm not as good as I need to be because I'm a man and I'm supposed to be that good. And it's like, no, wait, back up, back up,
Back
back
up.
up.
Back
You're
up.
still
Yeah.
you're still doing it. You're still in that rut. And again, it's about just taking a second to recognize that the range of human experience is
Hmm.
is just that. It's a range, it's a
Yes.
spectrum, it's
Yes.
a broad tapestry that, hey, not everybody fits into every single little square on the quilt, and that's okay. Sometimes you fit into a bunch of different boxes,
Yeah.
you know.
Exactly.
Sometimes you just in this one, but it doesn't change who you are the way that other people
Exactly.
act. And it doesn't make
Exactly.
you less than to recognize that you can experience a range of emotions and a range of feelings,
Hmm.
even just saying, even just recognizing that there are attractive men out there in the
Hmm.
world, for some cishet guys, is like the ultimate emasculation. Like, they can't,
Absolutely.
you can't,
Absolutely.
you can't possibly admit that part of the reason that George Clooney is famous is because of the fact that he is a good-looking
He's
dude.
a good
That just
looking man. Yes.
destroys these people. It
Yes.
just breaks them down, because they're like, "Oh my god, I might not be a man anymore because I said George Clooney is generally considered attractive."
Right.
It's like, it's
Right.
hilarious, you know? Um, it
It
what
absolutely. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, please, please.
Oh, no. Go ahead.
I was just saying, it's so silly how limiting it is. And that's
Mhm.
one of the things that I just keep coming back to
Yes.
is toxic masculinity really breaks down what it means to be a man into something that is such a gross caricature
Yes.
of what it is to be a man,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
It's much broader to be a person than a lot of times we want to give credit for. And
Yes.
that's also what I think is um, problematic for people when it comes to transphobic attitudes and
Yes.
behaviors and stuff is they are just not willing to allow people to be more than what they think they should be because they believe that it somehow, you know, speaks negatively on them. Like if I
Mhm.
don't call out this person, you know,
Yeah.
for not staying at home with their kids like a good
Yes.
woman should,
Yes.
that somehow like degrades my existence. You know, it makes me less than now. Like you're running off on me and ew, you know. But it's
Yeah.
again, it's nonsense because somebody that is truly secure in who they are, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are attracted to. That
Yes.
doesn't change my fucking life, you
No,
know?
it doesn't. Doesn't. And I think that that's something that the whole world needs to recognize because I
Mhm.
have said my entire life, beautiful things are meant to be recognized as beautiful. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter if they're male, female, a flower, a tree, an animal. It doesn't matter. There's beauty in what we are. And when you
Mhm.
recognize that beauty, you're just making the world a better place. It's not making you any less or any uh less of a human or less of a male or less of a female. It doesn't make any difference, you know. And like I'll share my personal story. Like I'm sure everybody who knows me now knows that like I when I started coming in this community, I had a big fat crush on someone and I was like, we flirted something terrible. I thought he was male. And he says to me, I'm transgender. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean?
Mm,
And then when I researched and figured out what it was, I'm like, and I'm making shit difference to me because you're
mm.
still attractive. You're still a great human being. And I still like what you have to offer me. So,
Yeah.
like, I made the realization that gender and what's assigned at birth doesn't make a difference to me. And if people, honestly, if men could go, you know what? It doesn't make a difference.
Mhm.
So what? That man's beautiful. That man's good looking. Damn, that man got some swag. There is nothing wrong with that. And for
Yeah.
people to say that, oh, it makes you queer, or it makes you this, or that's absolute toxicity. It's absolute toxicity because, and it comes from the fact that they're not secure enough in themselves
Right.
as a person. And you know, I have no problem with where I am right now. As a younger person, I definitely would have had a problem with it, but
Sure.
that's the evolution of being human, is that
Mhm.
we evolve into something better and we learn from what's happening in our society and what's happening in our groups to be able to put forth something better for the next generation. And I think that my generation of people we're reluctant, but we are learning.
Mm.
And what we're learning from our children. We're
Yeah.
learning from the three children that I raised. They're like, mom, come on, mom. That's not, but like in my marriage, we definitely have gender roles because that's the
Mm.
way I prefer it. I want to be the one working part time. I want to be the one taking care of my husband and my father in law. That's what I want. If I wanted something else and I said it to my husband, hey, this is not working for me. I need something else. He
Yeah.
would be like, okay, let's do it. You know, whatever. But so I don't want to hear like people criticizing, oh, she's in the normal gender roles. I don't want to
Sure.
hear that. That's what I chose.
Right.
Okay. There's
Right.
nothing wrong with it. If I chose it and I'm fulfilled by it, that's what's good. But you can't put somebody in that role if they didn't choose it. And you can't treat
Mhm.
them like that if they didn't, you know, nobody chooses to be treated like crap. That's just straight up truth. Nobody chooses that. And people who think that it's okay to do that are where the problem lies. And I think it lies with you and I and generations beyond you that are going to have to change that in order for our society to go forth and realize that, you know what, it this whole issue, it's not just a masculine issue,
Mm.
although it starts with you with masculinity and stuff, toxic masculinity. It's a human issue. This is a total and complete human issue that we all need to address because it's like you said, you got to teach your boys how to treat somebody.
Mhm.
Teach them how to treat their partner with respect, whether it's male
Mhm.
or female, it doesn't matter. You must teach your offspring to treat other human beings with dignity and respect. And
Yeah.
that's what it boils down to in my mind.
Yeah. 100%. And it's again, it while it is something that is most commonly found amongst a particular group, it
Mm-hmm.
is something that absolutely the lessons that are learned is something that everybody needs to take in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's toxicity and harm that affects everybody.
Yes.
Because you attempt to limit other people just the same way that you're limiting yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you're telling other people that they're not allowed to do certain things, mainly just because of the fact that you can't comprehend it. You
Yes.
can't comprehend that a woman could want to work a construction job. You
Mm-hmm.
can't comprehend that a man may want to be a nurse. These traditionally masculine, feminine, hardcore gender role type jobs, you
Mm-hmm.
because you can't wrap your head around that, you tell others that they're not allowed to do these things.
Yes.
Um, and so really it's an opening and a broadening of the world and your horizons. You
Mm-hmm.
start to understand that there are different ways to experience life other than the very narrow view of what you've thought
Mm-hmm.
was correct for so long.
That's
And
right.
very, very rarely, I don't know if I could say ever, because I'm sure there's probably at least one story out there, but very, very rarely have I ever heard somebody that says, like, wow, I spent a few years really trying to deconstruct this toxic masculinity in my head, and I really, really regret it. Like it was a
Yeah.
really bad decision. I want to go back to being toxic like that. Like, no, because you recognize how harmful it is to you and the people you care about,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Terry Crews, I don't know if you've ever heard any of
Oh,
his
yes.
stuff on this. He's amazing, and I think
Yes.
he recently wrote a book that kind of had to do with this. And yeah, the biggest revelation for him, I think, from what I remember seeing some podcasts on it, it was the amount of low level harm that he was doing on a regular basis to him that he didn't recognize. Again, it
Yes.
was just so normalized, it was a part of the background of his
Mm-hmm.
world, and he never understood like why he would feel shitty. And then it's like, oh, you've been working for like 12 hours today and you haven't let anybody come up to you and help you. You haven't let anybody come up to you and say nice things to you or hug
Mm-hmm.
you or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're continuing to go do all this stuff because you think that if you don't do it, then everybody's going to hate you. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, that's the reason like you feel bad today is because of all this internalized hatred that you
Mm-hmm.
have, because you're trying to live up to a standard that just isn't reality. That's
Yep.
just not the way the world is. Again, I am very pleased with my generation as well as
Yes.
the one beneath me. We
Yes.
have made a lot of progress. But we have a really big fight for sure, because what we're seeing now in the United States, like yes, a good handful of the things that we're seeing that I think are very regressive have a religious focus to them. Yes, that is true, but there
Mm-hmm.
is also a blatant level of sexism
Yes.
that is coming through, and
Yes.
it's not accidental. It's not a byproduct. They're specifically criminalizing people that need to get abortions
Yes.
because
Yeah.
we know that the majority of those people that are influenced by that are what
Mm-hmm.
we would consider women. And
Mm-hmm.
because that's the case,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to subjugate you and make your status less than.
Yes.
Again, this ideology, these all of those are really so narrow that they're incapable of um, including the vast spectrum of what it means to be a human. And
Yeah.
so they're not even thinking about the men out there that have uteruses, the trans
Mm-hmm.
men that are
Yeah.
out
They don't
there.
even consider them.
No, because they just don't exist, because this is not the world that I can understand, and I need you to fit in my boxes so that
Yes.
I can make better sense of why I feel sad sometimes. And it's like,
Mhm.
no,
Mhm.
you just feel sad sometimes, bro, because you're putting unrealistic standards on yourself and others,
There you
and
go.
other people are feeling shitty about that. And
Mhm.
now it's like, I don't want to hang out with that guy because he sucks.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
so,
No, and it's instead of saying the whole world needs to fit in my little boxes, how about you try this approach? Open your mind to the
mm,
things that have happened in the world around
yeah,
you. And you know what? You may think that your generation was the greatest generation, or when you were a child, it was easier. It was easier
mhm,
because we
mhm,
choose not to hide the issues anymore. We choose not to push people who are gay or trans
yeah,
or mind by. We don't choose to put them under the carpet and pretend like they don't exist. We
right,
choose to celebrate our friends, our people, our family, because they are human beings, and that's what we choose to celebrate
mhm,
in this day and age. And you got to get on board or get the heck off,
yeah,
because it ain't going to happen no more. It isn't. I mean, I can't imagine ever asking my friends who are gay or trans or anything. I could never even begin to ask them to A, go back in the closet,
mm,
or B, to deny who they are,
yeah,
because
for sure.
that's wrong. That's a human right that we all have. And whether you choose to believe or jump on board with what, the whole thought process of trans and gay people, whatever, keep your hatred over there,
Mhm,
because it's to you. You keep your hatred, but you cannot press down another human being. You cannot.
yeah,
They need to be able to live their true lives and their true selves, and that's all there is to it. You know.
yeah, and
And
I think that definitely is something that, again, my generation and the generation underneath, they're much better at calling this stuff out,
yes,
and
sir.
I think they do it in a way that's, really palatable for a lot of people,
Hmm. Hmm.
which is good. And I what was the thing that the K-pop fans did where they like took over some hashtag, and it was, oh gosh, it was some like toxic masculine hashtag, and I forget it. And if somebody remembers, please post it in the chat.
Yes,
But it
please
was,
do.
they ended up making the hashtag that was trending on all these like toxic masculine
Hmm.
groups. They ended up getting it so that basically anytime you looked it up, it was always,
K-pop thing.
well, it was gay men kissing, because it was
Yes,
specifically
yes,
something
yes.
that was homophobic. That
Okay.
was like the hashtag, and so they changed it, and it was something like men being men or something, and it was
Yeah.
so awesome because it was like, fuck yes, man. Like, we will take your hate, and we will call it out, and we will replace it with care and
Yes.
compassion for people.
Absolutely.
So that is a huge step forward that I am excited about. We are better about calling it out, and
Yeah.
I hope that gets better. And again,
Me.
you don't need to get all up in arms when somebody says this to you, because what we should want to do as good members of society, as human beings that are trying to live our best lives and trying to encourage other people to live their best lives, when somebody comes up to you and says what you just did or said was a toxic masculine trait, or
Hmm.
hey, what you just did or said was transphobic, or hey,
Yes.
what you just did or said was racist, what we should endeavor to do in those instances is take a breath and ask, and just say, "Oh gosh, I didn't mean it like that." If you really didn't mean it like that, like if
Yes.
you are
Yes.
just a racist piece of shit, that's a different story, right?
That is
But
different.
if you legitimately didn't mean it, there's no reason to get all aggressive and angry back. Just
Hmm.
ask, "What do you think it was that I did?"
Yeah.
And try to have an explanation, and understand. Again, don't force it on people. There are times and places,
Hmm.
and it's not
Agreed.
everybody else's job to make sure that you're educated on
Yeah.
stuff. Um,
Exactly.
but listen. I mean, that's one of the biggest things we've both said this whole time. Just listen
Hmm.
to other people when
Yes.
they say these things, and take a second to recognize that you changing slightly about yourself, you maybe not using the phrase no homo anymore,
Yeah.
um, things like that, doesn't undermine who you are. It
No,
it
not at all.
it doesn't make you less than, right? It just
Hmm.
means you're a person and you're changing. and hopefully that change is one that is more inclusive and more uplifting to other people, right?
Yes,
um
absolutely.
we again, good progress,
Yeah.
not where we need to be, but
No, but I
you
think that
know,
honestly, if we as a society start to embrace the word humanist, I
yeah,
am a humanist.
I agree.
I am all about supporting human beings and being compassionate toward each other and
Yes.
helping where I can, and honestly living a more loving way. Like I've always said that I change the world by my corner of the world,
Mhm,
because I live
mhm.
my life in a way that when people come to my house, they know that none of those freaking, what do you call it, stereotypes, none of
Mm,
those preconceived notions, none of that stuff flies in the Nichols home. Okay,
yeah.
we are open and we love everyone who is a friend to us. We are a friend to you. And I even open, I mean, I open my doors to my family, who are some of the, oh Lord, just, yeah, we'll leave that in enough. But that's, I think that's the goal. It should be the goal that we should all be humanists and we should love each
Right.
other and be compassionate towards each other as human beings. And I think it would be a very nice change for our society, you know?
Yeah, I agree 100%. Honestly, I totally agree with that. There, we all need to try harder,
Mm-hmm.
um, to just be better people, and then recognize that we're not always going to be perfect, you
Oh,
know,
absolutely
and
not.
that's
Yeah.
okay. And give ourselves the benefit of the doubt, and give others the benefit of the doubt. That doesn't mean that we don't call out shitty behavior. We absolutely have to, but
Yes.
we have to try and do it in a way that is still uplifting, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want to
Absolutely.
do it in a way that is still inclusive with people. Um, again, that's not, you know, that's not easy. I don't have the
Absolutely not.
step by step process, y'all, you
Yeah.
know, but
Yeah.
it definitely starts with stuff like this. You know, the
Yeah.
more we're willing to actually have conversations about it and talk about our missteps and the
Mm-hmm.
struggles that we still have, um, that is the start, right? And
Yes.
I think it's an old proverb from Eastern Asia somewhere, which is, you know, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. And
Yes,
that's the
sir.
point. Like,
Yes,
it's
sir.
life is this long tail, this long journey, and truly, it's all going to take time. It's all
Yes.
going to take time, no matter what it is. And the question really is about, you know, what's your goal, and what type of life do you want for yourself and
Mm-hmm.
for others. And if really where you are when you wake up every morning is, I want to be that person that everybody hates, I want to be that person that is breaking myself down on a
Yeah.
regular basis,
Yeah.
emotionally and psychologically and physically. If that's really where you want to be, I mean, okay, I guess harm yourself and nobody else, but
Yeah.
nobody,
But nobody
again,
should want that. Nobody should
no,
be saying that.
I've never heard anybody that really takes that time to be introspective and then wants to stay in that place, because again, with a lot of this stuff, it's just a cycle of anger, and it's just anger
Yes.
about nothing.
Yes.
And you're just pissed off all the time to just show that you can be pissed off. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
why do you want to live like that? Why do you want to be in a space where all you're doing is just yelling about other people, or
Yes.
yelling about, you know, all of these women that aren't, you know, paying attention to you because you're such
Yeah.
a great guy?
Yeah.
Maybe if you weren't so angry all the time, dude.
Yeah. There's a thought, right? If you weren't such an angry individual, you might get more attention.
I
So,
don't know. Yeah.
well, SR, I have to tell you, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you about this. You know, I'm sure that I know it is a subject that is close to both of our hearts, because we're coming at it from different places, but we want to achieve the same thing. So I'm going to wrap this up, and I'm going to tell everybody we have an after party. Please come join us, and we'll be hanging out, just sharing good conversation, and just, you know, blending in the group that we are, because we are awesome together. And always remember, you guys, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. So you have to know yourself well before you can share your wisdom with the world. Just something to think about. And know that I love you guys very much, and you are